you might have seen those movies of Godzilla. So again, Godzilla is what? Imagination, a special type of animal which is living in the water. Okay. So oceans are something which are very unexplored when it
Subscribe and press the bell icon so you never miss an update from PrepLadder.
So next change in the hydrosphere is the phenomena of marine pollution. So if we talk about the phenomena of marine pollution, it occurs when substances used or spread by humans such as industrial, agricultural and residential waste, particles, noise, excess carbon dioxide or invasive organisms enter the oceans and cause harmful effects there. So we have already seen pollution was what? Unwanted substances entering into the environment and having an harmful effect. That is pollution. So same thing is happening in marine pollution. The majority of this waste comes from land-based activities. So 80% of the pollutants are coming from land-based activities, although marine transportation significantly contributes as well. So ships which are passing through, they are also major contributors. Since most inputs come from land, either via rivers, sewage or atmosphere, it means that the continental shelves are most vulnerable to pollution. Air pollution is also a contributing factor by carrying of iron, carbonic acid, nitrogen, silicon, sulfur, pesticide or dust particles into the oceans. The pollution often comes from non-point sources. We have already seen what are point sources and non-point sources, such as agricultural runoff, wind-blown debris and dust. These non-point sources are largely due to runoff that enters the ocean through rivers, but wind-blown debris and dust can also play a role, as these pollutants can settle into waterways and oceans. Now, there are several pathways of pollution, marine pollution. So, one important pathway is the direct discharge. So, pollutants enter rivers and sea directly from urban sewage and industrial waste discharge, sometimes in form of hazardous and toxic waste or in the form of plastics. So, we will see plastic pollution has become one of the biggest problem. Marine debris has been created because of this plastic pollution. So that is one, direct discharge, because these urban sewage industries are dumping lots of waste in the water bodies which ultimately enter into the sea. Then land runoff, surface runoff from farming as well as urban runoff and runoff from construction of roads, buildings, ports, channels, harbors can carry soil and particles laden with carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus and minerals into the oceans. This nutrient-rich water can cause fresh algae and phytoplanktons to thrive in coastal areas, and we'll later talk about algal blooms, which have potential to create hypoxic conditions by using all available oxygen. Okay, so that is one. Ship pollution is another pathway. So ships can pollute waterways and oceans in many ways. One common is oil spills can have devastating impacts. I have given separate write-up for oil spills. Discharge of cargo residues from bulk carriers can pollute ports, waterways and oceans. Ballast water tank up at sea and released in port is major source of unwanted exotic marine life which is entering into the oceans. Okay, so all these are the ways in which the ships are polluting the oceans. Then there is atmospheric pollution. So another pathway of pollution occurs through atmosphere. Wind blown dust and debris including plastic bags are blown seaward from landfills and other areas. Climate change is raising ocean temperatures, we have already seen, and raising the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. These rising levels of carbon dioxide are acidifying the oceans, which is another form of pollution. Then other phenomena like deep sea mining. As with all mining operation, deep sea mining raises the question about the potential environmental damages to the surrounding areas. So you can see it can happen in many ways. This is the deep sea mining. So here there is the platforms from which There is the risers and lift systems which are built. You can see that. So number of ways this pollution can take place. For example, here you can see wastewater released during the processing of ores may carry sediments and heavy metals. Undersea noise will disturb movement and breeding patterns. Most of we have seen marine organisms are located in the photic zone, the upper part. Also, the risers and lift systems, this will cause plumes of sediments, smothering species, resulting in low oxygen in water. Light will change the behavioral and breeding patterns of the benthic communities. Benthic communities, we have seen this benthos floor, okay, which is present here. So when you are disturbing here the benthos, what will happen? There will be plumes can rise, okay, and lots of presence of light and sound that can also affect the habitat of the species which are essentially living here, okay. And remember that this ocean floor is something which is, deep ocean floor is something which is unexplored territory for us when it comes to biodiversity. We even don't know how many types of species are living there. And there is a possibility that we may even lose these lives even before knowing that they would have existed. Okay, you can understand our knowledge about this deep ocean floor is so less that it frequently manifests into several type of imaginations. Like you might have seen those movies of Godzilla. So again, Godzilla is what? Imagination, a special type of animal which is living in the water. Okay, so oceans are something which are very unexplored when it comes to the life which lives in them. So this deep sea mining is doing what? It is very clearly threatening the biodiversity which is present in the oceans, in this benthic part of the oceans, and not only here but also near the surface of the ocean. Now, as I said, one of the pathways is the oil spills. The most common cause of oil spill is the leakage during marine transport and leakage from underground storage tanks. Oil spill could occur during offshore oil production as well. Impact of oil spill on marine life. Oil being lighter than water covers the water surface as thin film, cutting off the oxygen to floating plants and other producers. Within hours of oil spill, the fishes, shellfish, planktons die due to suffocation and metabolic disorders. Birds and sea mammals that consume dead fishes and planktons die due to poisoning. Okay, so that is one. Now, one type of pollution which is taking place, which is very, very significant issue today, is marine plastic pollution. So let us look into this marine plastic pollution. So what is essentially this marine plastic pollution? It is believed that over 300 million tons of plastics are produced every year, half of which is used to create single-use items such as shopping bags, cups and straws. If discarded improperly, plastic waste can harm environment and biodiversity. At least 14 million tons of plastic end up in the oceans every year. Plastic debris is currently the most abundant type of litter in the ocean, making up 80% of all marine debris found from surface water to deep sea sediments. Plastic is found on the shorelines of every continent, with more plastic waste found near the popular tourist destination and densely populated areas. So you see, these are the garbage patches which have developed in the oceans, and in these garbage patches, 80% of the material which is present in these garbage patches is the plastic. So remember, I had explained you the gyres which are formed in the oceans. At the center of the gyre, there is a calm zone. So these calm zones are the places where this garbage has essentially collected. So we find that there are a number of garbage areas: North Atlantic gyre, North Atlantic garbage, South Atlantic garbage, South Pacific garbage, Indian Ocean gyre or the garbage region, and there is North Pacific garbage. Because it is very big North Pacific garbage, as a result you can see there are 3 separate gyres which are formed and 3 separate if you talk about the garbage zones which are present. Okay, so this is what we are calling it as the marine plastic or marine debris pollution. Okay, These are the referred to as the garbage patches. So remember, it is something like this. Actually, what happens? It is something like this phenomena is taking place. Suppose there is an ocean basin, and suppose this is your 30-degree latitude, and this is your 0-degree, and this is 60-degree. And suppose there is this ocean surface. So actually what happens, the winds, what they will do, they will pull water towards 30-degree, as a result of which there will be a high will be created. So this is the where the patch is essentially located. Now, this debris or this plastic was carried by the wind on the surface, and it got collected here in this patch, the garbage, the gyre region. And the currents which are flowing, lots of the currents, this water, because there is high and here there is low created. So this water will return back and it will become part of the ocean currents, the surface ocean currents which are there. Okay. So this means that this kind of circulation within the surface ocean currents is continuously taking place. So think, if there is lots of plastic present, this plastic will, because it will be going towards the garbage patch on the surface, but plastic is very light. So it will not be going down and it will not return back. Instead, what will happen? It will keep on getting collected here in this garbage patch. Okay. So that is how these garbage patches are essentially being created. And that is what we are calling it as the plastic pollution which is taking place. Okay. So the main source of plastic debris found in the oceans are the land-based, coming from urban and storm water runoffs, sewer overflows, littering, inadequate waste disposal and management, industrial activities, tire abrasion, construction and illegal dumping. Ocean-based plastic pollution originates primarily from the fishing industry, nautical activities and aquaculture as well. Under influence of solar ultraviolet radiation, wind currents and other natural factors, the plastic breaks down into small particles called microplastics, particles smaller than 5 millimeter, or nanoplastics, particles smaller than 100 nanometers. The small size makes them easy for marine life to ingest them accidentally. Okay. So many countries lack the infrastructure to prevent plastic pollution, such as sanitary landfills, incineration facilities, recycling capacity and circular economy infrastructure, proper management and disposal of waste system. This leads to plastic leakage into rivers and the oceans. The legal and illegal global trade of plastic waste may also damage ecosystems where waste management systems are not sufficient to contain the plastic waste. Okay. Now, why it is important, why we are talking about this plastic pollution? Number of reasons. It impacts the marine ecosystems. You can understand it would have several type of impacts. The animals can ingest this plastic, they can get suffocated, they can get entangled in this plastic. Okay. Marine wildlife such as seabirds, whales, fish and turtles mistake plastic for prey. Most of them then die of starvation as their stomachs become filled with plastic. They also suffer from lacerations, infections, reduced ability to swim and internal injuries. Floating plastic also help transport invasive marine species, thereby threatening the marine biodiversity and the food web. Also, they would get entangled in these plastics. You can also understand, if plastic is covering the sea surface, in that sunlight will not be able to penetrate. That will also impact the ability of the phytoplanktons to produce food. Impacts on food and human health. Microplastics have been found in tap water, beer, salt, are present in all samples collected in the world's ocean, including the Arctic. Several chemicals used in production of plastic material are known to be carcinogenic and to interfere with body's endocrine system, causing development, reproductive, neurological and immune disorder to both humans and wildlife. Okay, so again that is a problematic issue. Toxic contaminants also accumulate on the surface of plastic as a result of prolonged exposure to seawater. When marine organisms ingest plastic debris, these contaminants enter in the digestive systems and over time accumulate in the food web. The transfer of contaminants between marine species and humans through consumption of seafood has been identified as a health hazard, and on this the research is ongoing. Also, you can understand it would impact tourism, because if marine life is impacted, tourism will be impacted, and if beaches etc become littered with plastic, less people will be going, so it will affect the country's economy, and it also impacts climate change. So plastic production contributes to climate change. If plastic waste is incinerated, and it releases carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere, thereby increasing the emissions. Okay. So what can be done? Now the question is, what can be done? Efforts should be made to adhere to and strengthen the existing international legislative frameworks that address marine plastic pollution. The most important are the 1972 Convention on Marine Pollution by dumping waste and other matter, which is also known as the London Convention. The 1996 Protocol to London Convention, the London Protocol, and the 1978 Protocol to International Convention on Prevention of Pollution from Ships, that is the MARPOL Convention. Okay, so all these are the important conventions, international conventions, and they must be adhered to. Regional and national governments should also explore national legislative frameworks on extended producer responsibility. You know, already we are doing in India. We are trying to ban the plastics, and very soon it will be done. These are emerging as innovative, low cost. There is cost solutions as policies to promote circular economies. Government, research institutions and industries need to work collaboratively to redesign products and rethink their use and disposal to reduce microplastic waste from pellets, synthetic textile, tires. So many things have plastic. You know, microplastics is also contained in many of the cosmetics that we use, many even toothpaste. Okay. So consumers and society must shift to more sustainable consumption patterns. This will require solutions which go beyond waste management and consider the whole life cycle of plastic product to change. More funding for research will be definitely required, and also the methodologies to identify, measure and address marine pollution sources and plastic leakage are available, including from the IUCN. So see, the important thing is, very important thing is, because we know most of this plastic is coming from the land. Now there can be two types of ways in which you can tackle. One is the worst and the best. So worst is we are just doing what? Simply we are regulating and to some extent to disposing and to some extent regulating. In second, we are recycling the plastic. Better way is prepare for reuse and also develop sustainable design alternatives you begin to develop. Reduce and reuse and incentives to stop waste. Then the best is refuse, don't use plastics, develop alternatives, rethink, redesign and conserve. Okay, so that is the best way in which we will be able to tackle this problem of plastic pollution.